So, hello everyone. This is our first recording in the Highly Intuitive Kids website and Facebook community. And we're going to be doing a series of these types of recordings with different people, members, and folks who want to share their experiences about being highly intuitive and raising highly intuitive kids. And so today, I am pleased to have Marina Shapiro, who wrote our blog article that's on the website, Cultivating Your Child's Intuition. And I want to thank Marina for contributing that piece for the kickoff of the website, for the blog, and for the people in the community. They're able to go back and read it. But what the purpose of this whole series, these video series of sharing experiences, is for others to hear stories, all our stories, and to know they're not alone and be able to relate. And the more that we can talk to each other and start normalizing something as special as this, of having this trait, which is perfectly normal because it's more common than what people think. We need to start talking about it. And the more the adults start talking about it and understanding, embracing it, the more we can help support our children, and they can start embracing themselves from the earliest age and not disconnecting from their intuitive abilities. And we can support them in a way that they can go out and flourish from a young age and make their contributions to the world, being connected to their intuitive selves. So I want to thank Marina for being the one to, do the first video of sharing experiences and having this conversation. And just to say, I really appreciate you. And thank you so much, Marina, for doing this with me.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's my pleasure to be here today, and so exciting to be part of this amazing project. I know it will help so many people to actually find resources and find support and guidance on how to support their intuitive children and just themselves as well. I think as parents, I think we also need to support ourselves.
Yeah, and each other. I think the more we share and the more we talk, the more we're supporting each other, even though we may not meet everybody that is going to hear this, but we're all connected. And we're all going to be able to help each other through our experiences and stories.
Absolutely.
So we'll start off with Maria. Tell us the ages of your highly intuitive kids.
So I have a 12-year-old daughter and 9, almost 10 son. His birthday is in September. So yeah, we have preteens.
So
tweens.
the tweens. So
and they also look like twins. So yeah.
Wow. So Marina, when did you first notice that your children were highly intuitive, that had this high sense of intuition?
Well, I believe all children are born intuitive. We all come into this world with this navigation system that's called intuition. But I remember this one incident when I was driving my daughter. I think she was 3.5 at that time. I was driving her to the pre-K, and I was talking about her grandmother that passed away, and she passed away about a year before that. And she said, Mama, she's sitting right next to you in the car and she rides with us every day. Oh. And I was like, well, not to freak anybody out, but being myself intuitive, it didn't scare me. It just gave me a kind of a a sign that my daughter, she knows. She doesn't see in particular, images and visions, and maybe, but she's really in tune and she knows things. So she said, well, grandma's riding with us every single day in the front seat. I was like, well,
and that's a good point, Marina, because not every child will see, but they sense, know, and feel, and that's still being highly intuitive. A lot of times, especially in the media and all, they portray whether you can see spirits or see ghosts or see images, but it's not always seeing. It's the sensing and the knowing and all of that. So that's great. You being highly intuitive, pick that up about your daughter.
Yeah, she. There were a few other moments that she really kind of. I turned my head and I was like, well, she knows things. She definitely knows. And that was a kind of opened more conversations with her when she got older, and we went back to those moments when, you know, um, revisiting how she is and how she feels around certain people, what she knows about people. So, and I encourage her to actually um, nourish that and honor that, and not dismiss her senses, because it's so easy to do that in our world.
That's very true. Very true. And what about your son?
He's more visual, actually. He's a dreamer. He reminds me a lot of myself when I was a child. I used to have very vivid dreams, and some of them would come true, which scared me a lot. And I didn't have an adult in my life who would kind of walk me through what was happening. So it's very natural at some point to just step away and shut it down. But he's the same way. He has very strong dreams, and he has visions sometimes. Like, he would tell me things and then may sound all kind of like but there is a message in what he's saying, which is very interesting to me too. So he reminds me a lot of me.
Wow. Well, that's great that you recognize that. And how how about you coming up with your intuitive abilities? It's great that you are highly intuitive to be able to recognize that in your children, but how did you deal with it coming up? Because it does run in family lines. And so what was your experiences like?
Yeah, so I think as a child, I always was I had very I was a very sensitive kid. And a lot of times, being a sensitive child to everything that's going on, I was extremely shy, extremely and introvert. And I, I think what comes with these abilities a lot of time is you're not being understood. Like, your
Mhm.
parents don't understand you, your caregivers don't understand you. You're being,
Mhm.
I want to say, oddball. Sometimes it comes off like that. So
Yeah.
um, even though my grandma was very intuitive and she has a gift, I only found out it later in life that, as a young girl, she herself had dreams and kind of knowing what would happen in the future. So, which she shied away from it. And then I think that when I was as a child, I just stepped away from it because it was too unknown, too big, too much to handle. And I think that's what happens to a lot of intuitive children when they don't have somebody that supports them, and especially growing up in a culture. So, for example, I grew up in former USSR. I was born in Ukraine, and it was a very strict culture at that time. Like, it was all science driven. It's all didn't have anything religious, or even spirituality was a non-existent. So anything going beyond what you see, beyond material world, was never even a discussion. Nobody talks about your feelings, your emotions. So it was a tough world to grow up for a sensitive child, especially if you have a bit stronger intuition. Yeah,
Mm.
it
Wow.
you shut it down at some moment because you want to fit in. You don't want to be not normal, or not, you know, everything has to be normal, standard. Even I think we talked about it. Like, I just remembered as a child, we were wearing these very strict uniforms. They were these dark colored, and not to be, it's not in a depressing way, but I feel like everything was designed to kind of um, make you conform. You had to conform to
Mm.
certain standards, certain culture, and of course, you want it or not, so you step away from your intuition a lot.
Wow. Yeah. And I love you sharing that story. Now I'll just say, even for me, I grew up and in religion. I grew up Catholic. So, you know, just growing up in that, we had my mother had a very strong faith, but she also at times would talk about how she'd like have dreams, like premonitions, and
Mm-hmm.
certain things would come true. But she never recognized fully that she had what was going on with her and that she had this ability. But I know that she mentioned at times growing up that she felt different
Mm-hmm.
from everyone else. And so that's where it's just interesting how that does come down through, the family line, and how I shut down as a child because it was never entertained about, you know, mediumship or anything like that, of this high intuition. It's just I always knew that I felt things, I could hear things, I could see things that others couldn't, but I dare not, I didn't talk about them. Why do I
Mm-hmm.
think anything was wrong with me? And like you said, most kids and most adults, I think, tend to still hide this just because people don't want somebody to think something's wrong with them. And if you know that there's a line of high intuition, this is something we need to embrace and start talking about. But I think everyone needs to fully, people need to make sure that they rule out anything else that could be going on. But once you know that it's high intuition, it's got to be something that's embraced and fully talked about.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I think that's why it was so important for me, seeing my children and seeing how they kind of pick up on things, and not to shut it down, not to dismiss it, not to ever, always make sure that they're safe with what they feel, see, sense, because it's an amazing tool, and what happens when we grow into the society, we're just stripped of this tool, and it's very debilitating when we don't rely on our own GPS system, because clearly this is our navigation system in life, and I really wanted them to preserve it, and to make sure that their senses, those highly intuitive senses, those radars are not cut off, not chipped off.
Yeah,
So
that's so important. Being able to trust yourself versus relying on a lot of external validation and approval and guidance, because we all have that inner guidance to help us. And you're right.
yes, we all come with it. It's just when we lose that connection with our own system, we do begin relying on everybody else to tell us who we are, what we need to do, how to form our opinions, making decisions. It goes on and on and on. And then as adults, we suffer. A lot of times we just suffer because we lost that connection. We lost that trust in our own senses and our own intuition. Like a lot of people say it's your gut feeling. In simple word, like trusting your gut feeling. And how many times we're taught to dismiss it. And we teach our kids to dismiss it, because when my child is uncomfortable in class because they send something about the teacher, and the teacher says, sit down, be quiet, conform, the child shrinks and shuts that sense, that feeling off, rather than walking out or telling the parents, something not right here.
That is so true. That is very true, because we experienced the same with our son, of just trying to keep him connected to his abilities and understanding and being open and talking and sharing. So what are some of the techniques? Are you using any specific techniques with your kids to help them to stay connected to their abilities?
Well, it's just listening. I think it's just holding space for yourself to listen in any moment where you feel uncomfortable, you feel something's going, you feel overwhelmed. And a lot of times they don't know how to express it, so they will be screaming in your ear. It will be, I think with Ravi, he throws things, and not in anger, but I think he wants to express something that he, I'm overwhelmed right now, or I'm so not to take it as acting out, but rather like sit down and say, hey, what is going on here? What's in the heart? What are you sensing? And then we talk about people, talk about situations. I think talking to your child is number one. Trying to understand how they communicate to you. It's not always like, mom, such and such and this and this. No. Sometimes it's comes out like, oh, I don't feel like going to school. I don't feel like going to school. It can be as simple as that. And then you dismiss it rather than sit down and say, okay, so was there something yesterday? Was there something last week? And then things come up and we unveil, and then we talk about what's the deal.
Wow. See, and I love that. And and just to piggyback off what you're saying, even for my son, like you said, there's always something a little bit more going on. For a while, he didn't want to ride the bus. He would get on, when he would get on the bus, and he would start missing the bus. He was always missing the bus and missing the bus. But just sitting down and talking with him, because at first it's like, why are we missing the bus? We keep missing the bus. But then I started to realize, let's talk more. Like you said, just talking is so important. He
Yes.
finally opened up and said, Mom, it's too much with the energy on the bus with the kids
Mm-hmm.
and some of what's happening. And sometimes they can be, you know, kids get amped up coming home from school or going to, and so he would miss the bus because it was just overwhelming. And for me to take him or have to pick him up felt better, and he could relax more. But to, like you said, unpack it and really start talking and see the why behind the action. It's easy for parent to get mad and say, why is this happening? What's going on? But there's always something a little bit more. And it's great to be able to talk and have the kids open up and share. It's always to seek understanding before just kind of dismissing and thinking it's taking it at face value.
Definitely. It kind of brings me, when they were younger, I think we struggled a lot with restaurants, and I tried, when they were babies and toddlers, I would rarely take them to a restaurant because I knew what it's like to be so overwhelmed by even noises. People don't realize how the noise can be so overwhelming and overpowering to your senses. We're so used to it now. People have TVs and radios as white noise sometimes in the background. I'm like, well, what are you doing to yourself? You're completely shutting off what's going on inside you, right? So I think taking kids to the restaurant was always a struggle for us because they would be fidgety or they would be anxious, and I didn't understand because you want them to sit and then the sit still and eat your food. But I kind of understand that when you pick up on so much energy and you read other people's and whatever they are bringing, it's very overwhelming to a child. That's why I always, not to judge people, but babies do not belong in restaurants. And I know sometimes you have nobody to leave them with, and just being mindful, of, because babies are so in tune and their sense is just developing and so heightened. So when you bring them in into a very noisy place, you're shutting off some of them. So just something to, I'm not telling people what to do, but it's something to be mindful of,
No, and I love you offering that, because I will piggyback off what you're saying. We had the same issue with Ethan, with our son. We couldn't take him into restaurants. We couldn't take him out into activities. Like we would go to community events. Like we went to a balloon festival one time and we took him and he screamed and hollered. He was like about 3 years old. And he was screaming, I want to get out of here. I can't stay here. And we didn't understand just how much it was overloading him intuitively. And it just got to a point we couldn't understand, like, we can't take him anywhere. But then we started just realizing how sensitive he was, because he's so open. Just like you said, kids are, from the time they're born up to at least like 7 and 8 before they get in school and start, learning more logically how to think that way. They're very open and they just absorb. They can be on intuitive overload very easily when they're highly intuitive. So I think it's a great point you brought up.
Yes, and I think we all have senses. We all have that sixth sense. It's just learning to tune into it. And once we tune into it, we tune into our kids and kind of try to understand how they operate, because not every kid operates the same.
And the kids that, and this whole effort here is called highly intuitive, because what you said, 100% agree. Everybody's intuitive. All kids are intuitive, adults are intuitive, but you have those children and adults that have a turbocharged, a heightened sense of it. And it's a heightened degree of it. And those are the ones that, that we're talking about, of receiving intuitive overload so easy. But everyone has that GPS, that guide will have that. But Some kids just have it a little bit more, and they need to be parented differently. They need to be listened to and helped and supported in a little different way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so important to actually tell them, I see you, I understand you, I get where
Mhm.
you're coming from. Or even if I don't, I'm going to try to work with how you process the world, how you see. And if I don't understand, I think a lot of times how we cut that connection is by just dismissing it, and it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do because you're in a hurry, you've got a busy schedule, you got a to-do list, you bring your child with you to whatever you need to do, and then the child is, uh, you know, I remember, and most of the kids in the store, they scream because they're so overwhelmed too. But I know my children don't like going to stores at all, and I honor that.
Yeah.
So I find ways to not to drag them through that experience.
And
And
that's
I'm not perfect either. I make my own mistakes. We all do, but it's something. Or gatherings. I try to be mindful of gatherings that
Mhm.
um there was one incident again. She was a baby. She was 1.5 maybe. And it was an important event, a family event, and we drove
Mhm.
for an hour and a half into this big beautiful house, and we walk into the house and she refuses to walk into the house, and she screamed on top of her lungs. And every time, so we took her out. Evgeny at that time, he was just like walked around with her, and he tried to bring her back in. She would just scream.
Mhm.
So we had to leave because she didn't want to be in that house. She didn't want to be around those people. And nothing personal. They're great people, but maybe she picked up something that was not in her favor, not good for her, not supportive, and we left.
And see, and that's the beautiful thing to do is to when you honor your child like that, because for Ethan, birthday parties have always been an issue. We get invited to birthday parties and try to take him. And even now, it's just the overload of being in groups.
Yes.
We would go to birthday parties and RSVP, show up, and he might be able to stay for 2 minutes before he would just either be trying to find a corner to go hide in or start screaming and crying or I want to get out of here. And sometimes you feel like other parents are looking like what's wrong with the kid or what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. But we had to honor Ethan, and we just and after a while we started saying, okay, Ethan, you have to decide, we're going to honor you, we'll go even if it's just for a little bit and then we can leave. But we started just not letting it make us not making it about us feeling uncomfortable with what was happening, or that we would go and we'd have to leave, like you said, even family events, but just honoring Ethan and saying, okay, it's okay, we have to do what's best for our child, and do that. And so that's and I think when they understand that you can understand them and you're going to do the things to honor
Mm-hmm.
them, that's when you can keep the conversation open and the connection open for them to share more with you.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually builds the trust,
Mhm.
And I'm not saying, I don't understand me wrong. I'm not saying that you have to leave every event, and you don't ever go to the store. No, life is life. And I don't want to come off as I'm shielding my kids off from life. No, they have to know how to shop. They have to know how to be at an event, even when they're uncomfortable. So we have to pick and choose, I guess. But I think when all the signs are so clear that, it's I don't want to say damaging, but develops anxiety and stress to the child, why go through it? Like, as a parent, I think we have to do our job to stop in a moment and say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah. and
So
and even too now, and when you recognize that, because I do think you, like you said, you can't shelter them, you just have to honor when it's too much for them. But now, like with this group and information we'll be bringing more and more to people, is to teaching your child how to understand what's happening with them and learning how to ground themselves
mhm,
and to shield their energy and protect themselves and bubble themselves up. When they start understanding how they can help to manage themselves and self-regulate themselves,
mhm,
their intuitive abilities, that's what's helpful. And that's why these conversations are going to be helpful, and how we can start helping parents to understand techniques that will help them help their child to manage their energy and not take on the energy or the intuitive overload when they have ways. There's ways that you can do that to help them, manage it better for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just doing everything possible to help them use this tool, this skill that they have, and maybe learning with them at how it works,
That's
and what it
important.
can do. It's like this one, I don't want to say it's a magic one, but it's a really cool tool that you can use, because sometimes it can get you out of sticky situations, or it can maybe bring a message to somebody who's been waiting for it, And especially I'm thinking of Ethan, and I'm thinking of Asta. Sometimes she says things and it's a clear message. and and just letting them embrace it, when something needs to be brought through.
Or they get that great big inspiration, or that big idea that they don't dismiss, because they know it's actually something that is coming to them for a reason to be expressed. And Ethan wants to be an inventor, and he's constantly drawing inventions and ideas. And I encourage him by getting him invention notebooks to keep writing that down, because that's an intuitive information coming to him that's going to help him on his path. And so we can encourage our children this way. And that's keeping them connected. And it's just going to be amazing to see what they start to bring to the world at a young age, when they stay connected, when they understand and know how to manage their high intuition, and then be able to bring through what they're meant to be, what they came here to help bring through to the world.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I feel like creativity, you asked me about techniques. And one of the best techniques, I feel, resorting to drawing, and I do it a lot with my kids, where you draw your emotions and you pay attention to the colors of your emotions, and how you can actually transform one color into another one to help you elevate yourself. So you maybe had a difficult day and it was a big emotion that came over and you're struggling to process it. And I think art and drawing and just maybe writing the words out, I think it's so therapeutic also to adults, but I think to a child it's a form of expression, a form of support, something they can rely on, and open so many conversations.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Art is a wonderful way for kids to express themselves, and it gets it out versus keeping it in that note, but just getting it out of them, whether it's a child or an adult, and on paper, and then you can really look and you start seeing, tangibly what's going on, and you can start working through things better. So I definitely agree that art is a great way to do this.
Absolutely. And right. And to artist, speaking to an artist, I feel like it's one of the best ways to even for us to kind of soothe our minds, or when we're going through stressful situations, stressful times. I highly recommend all these doodling books, mandala books, whatever kind of repetitive motions that can take your mind into a calmer place. Also grounding techniques, so breathing techniques and meditations. I absolutely, every evening we put on a meditation before we go to sleep to let go of the day, because you have to cleanse. And this is something that I think we talked about, is how to keep the home clean of energies, but also yourself. Like, we take a shower every single day. It's so important to cleanse ourselves mentally and emotionally every single day. So meditation for kids is amazing.
Yeah.
And it helps them with sleep. It helps them process some things too, because there are times I put on a meditation and I'm hoping they go to sleep and they start talking, and we talk, we talk about things.
And I'm glad, like, mentioning those techniques. And if people go over and they look at the website, under our helpful techniques section, it has just that. There's videos for yoga and for breathing techniques and for meditation, tapping. There's all different kinds of holistic techniques out there that that is made accessible all in one place for people to start, and then they can go off after they look at the website and research more on their own for what will help their family and their children. But it's so important to have these types of techniques to help the children manage the stressors with these abilities when they're on, overload, to be able, because it's actually, all of this works through our central nervous system. And techniques help to calm that energy down and to help ground the child or even the adult. I mean, anybody could really benefit from it. But these are wonderful techniques. And if people hop over to the website, you'll see some listed out there as starters. And then you can go and research more for yourself. But yeah, so wow, Marina, I think this has been a wonderful conversation, just to get people hearing, your experience and the fact that even I want people to understand the scope that this is affects people everywhere, and children everywhere, people everywhere. And Marina's from, like you said, came up in the USSR, Ukraine. I'm here in the US. It affects every child of every background, of every country. So I think it's important that we have these kind of conversations and talk about it. And Marina is an artist, a metaphysical artist. She does soul art paintings and beautiful work. And she does have a website, which please hop over to our website, the Highly Intuitive Kids website, and read her blog article if you haven't. We'll be hearing more from Marina. She'll be contributing more, but also hop over to her website, which she can tell you if you want to read more of her articles or find out more about the work that she does. But Marina is going to be a contributor and supporter to this effort, and we thank her so much. But Marina, what's your website? It's listed on the blog as well, but you can tell people here too.
Yeah, so my website is under construction actually right now. So it would be colorsfromwithin.com, but you can read some of my articles at wordpress.colorsfromwithin.com. So I think there is a link on the website too, so you can just follow and see what kind of speaks to you.
Great. So I appreciate this. I guess I will leave. What is the final word of what is your wish for your children and just being involved in this effort?
So I think, as for my own children, for any child who has those abilities, is just my wish is for us to be mindful and aware enough to help them grow and embrace their gifts, and to help them be true to who they are without us trying to make them into anything that maybe society wants us to make, or the school, or parents' opinions. Is just think true to what our God is telling us, and honoring our children in every possible way.
That's great. That's wonderful. And then for this effort, creating, I think it's important for children who are alike to get to know each other and get connected. So in the future, there's going to be Q&As and information sessions, and we're going to do some meetups online so that kids can start parents and adults, families getting to know each other, and kids can start seeing that they're not alone. There are other children out there like them that they can connect with and talk to, and families talk to and connect with, so that we start, having more of these open conversations. And my wish is that we start to mainstream and really normalize this, so that nobody feels like when you have high intuition that you're strange or that anything is weird about this, but this is just a natural part of who we are, and that there's a certain, I mentioned on the website, 15 to 20% of the population has this ability. So it's not weird, it's not spooky, it's not scary, it's just another set of abilities that we need to embrace and use, and to help support our path in the world. And we're meant to all bring something special to the world through the gifts and abilities we've been given. So my wish is that we continue to have these conversations. I appreciate you doing this with me, that other members and people will come forward and share their stories, because we're all going to learn from each other. Everyone has a unique experience, and every perspective is going to be welcome, because there's somebody out there who's going through what you've gone through and what we've gone through. So I truly appreciate you, Marina, for coming and doing this with me and sharing your story and just your insights. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alan. My wish is for this project to touch so many people and so many lives, to just let them know that they're not alone, definitely, and that they have support,
That's right. Well, thank you so much. We'll look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank
on
you.
The blog. People will be able to keep following your work, and I hope they'll check back. Everyone check back. There will be others who will be sharing their stories. And if you have a story that you would like to also share, whether it's on the blog or even in a video chat, we're going to do parent chats, because parents helping parents, that's what this is all about. So please, submit an email to us and let us know. And we would love to hear your stories, and maybe whatever story you submit, you'll see featured out on our blog. So thank you, Marina. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Alan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And we'll be chatting with you again soon, and we'll be chatting with others as well. So thank you all very much.
Bye.
Bye.